So thank you everyone for coming this evening. It's great to see all of you here. My name is Janet Fraser. I'm one of the vice presidents with our Elementary Teachers Federation here in Ottawa, and I'm going to be chairing the meeting tonight. And as you know, the title of our meeting is Fighting for Public Services. We could even say fighting against austerity, because this is all part and parcel of the same thing. And to begin our evening, the meeting is mostly, well, partly, put together by Solidarity Against Austerity. And Kevin Scarrett is going to say a few words first about that and welcome you all here this evening. So Kevin?
Thank you, Jan. Yes, Kevin Scarrett here. I work for CUPW, Canadian Union of Public Employees. And as Jan says, I've just been asked to sort of offer a bit of a welcome and a brief description of Solidarity Against Austerity, as Jan says, one of the groups that has organized tonight's meeting. So for those of you that don't know, Solidarity Against Austerity is a very grassroots sort of activist grouping or network that came together a couple of years ago in early 2012, when a group of trade union activists, student activists, and environmental, green, climate change activists got together to talk about the problem of the lack of a serious grassroots and militant political mobilization to respond to what we're seeing from all levels of government. Really the broad austerity agenda. Trade unions are under attack, and a lot of us felt at the time that we haven't seen the kind of mobilized and militant response to austerity at all levels of the kind that we need. And so the plan was, right away we thought, we need to respond in the first instance to attacks from the federal government, the Harper government, which is taking such a lead role. And we planned to do a street mobilization on May Day of 2012. We ended up, I won't tell the whole story, but we ended up working with the Public Service Alliance of Canada and some other federal government unions. And we ended up with between 12 and 1,500 people marching and demonstrating in front of the Prime Minister's office on May Day of 2012. So this really kicked off the start of a different kind of worker and trade union activism in this region. In some ways it emerged out of a number of other projects, including in 2011 we had a number of us involved in something people may remember called People for Postal Workers, where we were organizing in support of the bargaining of Canadian Union postal workers at the time. And anyway, this project, this grassroots project of Solidarity Against Austerity has continued in, I would say, in stops and starts, but it renewed itself last year in 2013, prepared another mobilization with marches and street actions on May Day of 2013. And really, I guess what I'd like to say is that after another successful mobilization, a number of us met last May, people who were involved in this, and sort of committed ourselves to taking it to another level. Not just organizing for one big action, but starting to talk about how can we organize a militant, activist, worker, and popular movement in this community that responds to the broad austerity agenda. And some of us identify this with capitalism, some of us identify this with certain governments and politicians, but we have all come together with a shared agenda of saying we need to mobilize, we need to develop new links across unions, across different social movements, and find a way to really kick things into another gear. So that's a bit of the background. Now we're gearing up and looking ahead. If people think this sounds interesting, there's a couple of sign-up sheets. I'm just going to specifically mention a couple of the projects that SAA, what we call SAA, has got rolling in the last few weeks. One of them is we have something we call the Workers' Action Committee, which is dedicated specifically to making links across unions and supporting each other's struggles. That might involve picket line support, but it might involve other kinds of struggles. And the one main project that has really come onto our agenda in the last few weeks is working in support of the postal workers and in defense of the postal services, which, as everyone in the rooms know, has faced this terrible attack just in December of last year. There is a serious campaign now underway to build a community-based cross-country movement in defense of postal workers and our postal service. That is kicking off in Ottawa with a major mobilization this coming Sunday, 1 o'clock in Dundonald Park. Talk to me or talk to others afterwards if you're interested in knowing more about that or haven't heard about it. Please sign up to one of these lists because we will be sending out updates and notices, and there are leaflets at the back. Brian is holding them up. Leaflets in the back about this one immediate struggle that's rolling already getting underway. That's one project I'll just mention quickly, because some of you may be federal government workers, members of one of the public service unions. There is a second project of starting to build the same kind of activist-oriented network across the public service unions, people that want to figure out ways to work together and build a different kind of worker and trade unionist movement within the federal public service. That's something that's just getting underway. So there's some interesting things happening, and now with that group, we are now projecting forward to a major mobilization this year that we hope will be even bigger and more extensive than in the past 2 years. So it's a very exciting project. It's going to involve a lot of work, but it's really more timely than ever with the kinds of attacks that we're seeing that just keep getting worse. We expect they will continue to do so until we can fight back and turn it around. So that's a little bit about Solidarity Against Austerity. I'll turn it back over to Jan to introduce the speakers for tonight.
Thank you, Kevin. If I may, I'd just like to add that we have also, our union, and mostly in the form of me, has been involved with Solidarity Against Austerity. And if you remember, last year education workers were under attack by the provincial government, and being part of Solidarity was a huge help to us, because Solidarity was able to get out students and people from other unions to support us for very large rallies, which was really amazing. So even though it was a small group, they were able to do a lot together. So I urge you to sign up tonight and come out and see what you can do to help get this mobilization going. So this evening, we are talking about fighting for public services. We have two guests here this evening. We have Lori Karras, who is from the Regional Education and Organization Officer with CUPW, Postal Workers. And we have Michael Harrington, who is a guest from Chicago, who's with the Chicago Teachers Union. We're going to begin this evening having Lori give us a bit of an update, what's happening at Canada Post. And I think if you're not familiar with this, it's a bit shocking actually what is happening at Canada Post. And Lori's going to tell us about the Fight Back campaign, which I hope all of you will be involved with. So Lori, I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me in the back? Yep. Yes? Okay, great. So thanks for asking me to come out tonight and speak to you all. The Canadian Union of Postal Workers, we are going to be fighting to save Canada Post from the dramatic cuts to the postal service endorsed by this Conservative government. I've been a postal worker for 35 years. This is one of the biggest attacks on the federal public service that I've seen. It's an attack on everyone who relies on the post office, and as well as an attack on workers. So I want you to know that we're going to fight for our public postal service, and we're going to fight for good jobs. We're going to work with the millions of citizens who want door-to-door delivery. How many folks in the room currently get door-to-door delivery? Wow, most of you. Yeah, okay, so this is going to be important to all of us. So what we're going to do is we're going to work with those of you who want to keep your door-to-door service, and we are going to work with community organizations, our allies. We're going to work with the seniors, people with disabilities, organizations that represent them, small businesses, home-based businesses. We're going to work with everyone who cares about the Postal Service to overturn what we see as a very bad decision. The Conservatives have made a big mistake. Many people are upset, and people are already taking action. They made a mistake because they're wrong to think that people are going to accept these devastating cuts. And this is a winnable fight, and we intend to win this fight. I'm going to begin with an overview of the cuts and their impact, and then I'm going to outline better options for Canada Post, followed by our plan for fight. So, as Kevin mentioned, in December, Canada Post took postal workers and the public by surprise with their plan to eliminate door-to-door delivery, which is going to destroy between 6,000 and 8,000 postal worker jobs across this country. This decision was rushed through prior to a government review of the Postal Charter, which was already scheduled for later this year, rushed in just before the holidays and just after Parliament had closed for their holiday break. And it was also rushed through before the financial results from 2013 had been released. So, Canada Post said they consulted with the public. Were any of you consulted? No? No. Canada Post CEO Deepak Chopra said that seniors told Canada Post they wanted more exercise and fresh air through the introduction of these community mailboxes. Shame. This is the first clue that Canada Post failed to consult the public. Many of the seniors we've been hearing from are very upset about going out in icy conditions to collect their mail. In reality, Canada Post had an online comment section on their website and held invite-only meetings in 46 communities. This is not a meaningful consultation process. So what's the impact? Ask anyone with a community mailbox delivery what they think. They may tell you there are disadvantages in terms of safety, security, accessibility, litter, snow buildup, and the impact on the environment. We've all heard the stories. Community mailboxes get broken into, mail and parcels get stolen. Then we've heard the lack of snow removal in winter, leaving residents to climb over their snowbanks to get their mail, and frozen boxes that won't open. We've heard about piles of paper littering the ground around these boxes. There's also an environmental impact. People, rather than having one letter carrier delivered to your door, people are going to need to get in their cars and drive to their community mailboxes. That's going to increase the carbon emissions. Seniors and people living with disabilities will be hardest hit, especially if Canada Post takes away this door-to-door delivery. They rely on this service to stay connected and independent. Furthermore, the huge increase in stamp prices will make sending a letter much more expensive for the average person. And this will likely force many who would prefer to send a letter to rely on electronic communications. This will result in further decrease in letters, compounding the already existing decline in letter mail. So we were fed misinformation and excuses to justify these cuts. We were told that 2/3 of the population already have their mail delivered by community mailboxes, which is simply not true. Only 25% of households receive delivery to a community mailbox, route mailbox, or kiosk. With the government's plan, the number of people who have to walk or drive to get their mail will increase by 132%. We also heard that the Canada Post pension plan was in crisis, yet not once did we hear that our pension plan actually has a surplus on a going concern basis. Now Canada Post has a 4-year exemption from the solvency payments. If long-term interest rates go back up during this period, the solvency deficit will no longer be an issue. We also heard the cuts were necessary based on the Conference Board of Canada report, an organization whose board of directors includes the CEO of Canada Post. This report, paid for by Canada Post, projected that Canada Post would lose $1 billion by the year 2020. The Conference Board based their estimate on the assumption that Canada Post would lose $250 million in 2012. Were they correct? No. Canada Post actually made $94 million profit in 2012. So if the Conference Board can be so wrong about what happened in 2012, what makes anyone confident that they know what's going to happen in 2020? So we've heard a lot about the current financial situation of Canada Post and the decline of letters, yet we hear very little of the fact that Canada Post made more than $90 million profit last year and hundreds of millions of profits in 2009 and 2010. In fact, the only year Canada Post lost money was the year they had to pay out a huge pay equity settlement, and they also shut down the post office for 2 weeks by locking us out. With the exception of that year, Canada Post has been profitable every year since 1995. During these years, Canada Post paid over $1.5 billion to the federal government in the form of dividends and income taxes. This year, we do not know what will happen. We hear Canada Post talk about record parcel volumes, and we saw that over the Christmas period. But we also know there is a decline in letters, and we accept the fact the post office is changing. But we have a better plan for the future. Canada Post needs to follow the example of the post offices in the UK, France, Italy, Switzerland, and many other countries, which are currently either beginning a banking service or expanding existing services. Today, there are thousands of communities in our country with post offices, but not banks. We have hundreds of thousands of citizens without bank accounts. A postal bank has both social and economic benefits. In countries like France, Brazil, and Italy, postal banks aided the financially vulnerable and financed public investments like roads, schools, and water projects. While other postal administrations have had the imagination to introduce banking, ours tries to slash our core postal service. We need innovation, not excuses and cutbacks. We will not allow Canada to be the first country in the world to eliminate door-to-door mail delivery. We will not allow mail to become unaffordable and inaccessible. And we will fight to keep a network of post offices from coast to coast to coast. We have fought Conservative government before and won. In 1988, you'll remember Brian Mulroney's government announced it would privatize and close every post office except for 11. We organized in every region, and eventually the Conservatives were defeated, and the Liberal government introduced the moratorium on post office closures in rural and small one post office towns. It's because of postal unions like us, CUPW, that we still have thousands of post offices open to serve the population. So today we have a new challenge, and once again the union's going to fight to preserve public postal service. How are we going to do this? We're going to mobilize our postal workers. We're going to work with individuals and groups across the country, groups like yourselves. We'll be in our communities, knocking on doors and talking with the public. We'll get our names on petitions, letters to members of parliament, window signs in houses. I brought all three of those things. They're at the back. Please help yourself. I have window signs in French and English, buttons you can wear. If you haven't already done so, please sign the petitions that I left at the back. We will work with opposition parties to develop strong positions for public postal service. We'll pressure Conservatives to come out against these cutbacks. We will encourage municipalities to refuse to allow community mailbox to litter their streets and parks. And we'll ensure this issue does not go away. We will work to build support everywhere we can, and this starts with all of us. We need your help. There are many ways to be involved. You can add your name to our list of volunteers. You can take part in any of our campaign actions. And you can also go to savecanadapost.ca or CUPW.ca for more information. And you can let me know if you want to work with us to save Canada Post. Talk to your MPs. Talk to your city council. Municipalities across Canada are passing resolutions to support our fight. In closing, I'm going to repeat our promise that the CUPW will do everything possible to stop these cutbacks and defeat the government that supports cuts to our public post office. So thank you again for your time.
Shelby, can you move this?
Oh, my.
Thanks. Thank you, Lori. I think we're going to hold questions until after our second speaker. And second speaker is Michael Harrington from the Chicago Teachers Union. And one of the reasons that we've invited Michael up here is because his union has actually fought the good fight and done a really good job of it, probably a better job than many of our unions have done. And he has some knowledge that I think we can all use. Michael's union basically face challenges not the same as Canada Post, but certainly maybe not cuts to services, but changes to the education system that were not good for the public. And his union stood up for that, and I think they won. So we're going to ask Michael to give us some words of wisdom right now about how they fought back and perhaps show us how we can fight back. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Michael.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for, first I'll introduce myself more formally. My name is Michael Harrington, and my job with the Chicago Teachers Union is as Director of Union Operations.
Call you back?
Yeah, I'll call him back. Director of Union Operations with the Chicago Teachers Union, which means I oversee our Department of Communications, our Finance Department, and administrative support. And I came in with Karen Lewis's administration 3 years ago when she was elected as an amazing reform candidate for president of the Chicago Teachers Union. There's a lot of things I want to share with you, and yes, we have had some victories, and we've had some losses, some wins and successes. It's a roller coaster. And given Chicago politics, American politics, I'm trying to talk to you about some of that. But I guess I want to ask, number one, give a good thumbs up to everybody who is out here in this weather on a night like this. I want to celebrate each of you for being a concerned member of your organization, your union, whatever, because most folks are sitting at home keeping warm, and maybe sitting home keeping warm with a nice cold one in their hand too. But you all are out paying attention to issues, and you're following up on things that are vital to your life and to your communities. And I'd like to ask again to get a sense of who is here tonight. How many people here, and raise your hands, are members of a union? Okay, my second question is, how many people who are here are not members of a union? 1, 2, 3, 4. And I think that's going to have a lot to do with what I want to share with you tonight. It's about the very, very important issue of building, reaching out for, encouraging, promoting allies. That allies has a lot to do with the success that the Chicago Teachers Union has had in the past 3 years in fighting our various versions of austerity. You have one grand title for it here on this side of the border. We have 1,000 different ways for budget cutting and slashing and claiming that the government has no money and the bureaucracy the budget is tight and we've got to cut back and pull our belts in tighter and yada yada. There's 40 different ways they try and do it in Chicago, the state of Illinois, and the United States of America where I live. And I want to talk also about one of the things that's real important, that was very important to us towards the goal of building allies for us. And that important thing that I want to share with you is talking about the kind of service model our union is operating under the kind of model our union is operating under right now, service versus social organizing models. Two different distinct ways of how you go about representing union members for us. The traditional service model of unionism, and there's dozens of powerful and large and small unions in Chicago, the traditional model is basically considered to be a top-down animal, where the union officers that are elected and the union staff basically spend a lot of time making most of the decisions for what the union is going to be doing. They exist basically to serve members, and members are more like customers for the union. The union leadership is responsible for the contract negotiations. The union leadership is responsible for managing grievances and arbitrations and making sure that the pay and benefits are there and enforcing the contract. And when it's deemed necessary, the union officers and staff spend time mobilizing the members to come out, demonstrate, participate in this, that, or the other. And it's basically, union members have a sort of like a backseat or a very passive role in how the union operates. The Chicago Teachers Union represents about 28,000 in front of children classroom teachers, teacher aides, service workers, people who are clinicians and healthcare professionals serving our student population of 450,000 students, 90% of whom come from children come from families of poverty or below the poverty level. The majority of our children, over 80%, are black and brown. The faculty works with these children in 600 schools across the city of Chicago. Our members, many of them have been there an average of between 15 and 20 years on the job, many longer. So they have a lot of knowledge. Our members have a lot of knowledge about the job they're doing, the population they're serving. When we took office, when Karen Lewis was elected president of the union in July of 2010, we resolved to create one overarching mission statement for everything we do, every activity, every project, every bit of research, every public action, hopefully is supposed to be aimed towards one overriding goal, which we adopted as what we were going to do, and this relates to building allies. we said that we want the Chicago Teachers Union to be and be seen as Chicago's chief advocates for children. Now, as I talk today, try and think of what concepts I'm sharing relate to the service you do in your respective union and your respective job. Who is benefiting? We talked about the fact that we want Chicago to be seen, union to be seen as Chicago's chief advocate for children. So that means we are very much engaged in the lives of the children. We are engaged and involved with children's parents. We're involved very much with the communities in which these children live. We care about how we organize our members around principles that we think are important. We care about the context in which our work is done. What's the economy in Chicago, Illinois, United States? What's the political system like in Chicago, Illinois, and United States? What's the culture like? What are the obstacles and what are the advantages that each of us as individuals on the job and the people we serve, what are we facing, what are we working with, what do we have to fight and improve? Our social organizing unionism model engages the members of the union, encourages them to exercise what they already know, the spirit and the energy that they have brought to that job already, and encourages them to provide leadership for the union. We do a big job in talking about the rank and file. Every meeting we go to, we remind members that the union is not the 4 officers that are elected every 3 years. Officers come and go. It's not the staff members of the union. It's not the building downtown, that union off. That's not the union. The union is actually you members who pay the dues. You members who pay the dues to the union are the union. We ask union members to provide the leadership. We encourage, we support, we give energy to members to take initiative at the local school level and come up with ideas and creative projects that they want done citywide. We have lots of things going on. We have lots of demonstrations. We have lots of protests. We have major activities to try and draw attention to what we do, because that is one of the most important parts of the job, is telling the public what is it you do. We really, frankly, all of our unions at a point now, we have to justify your existence. You have to justify every penny that's invested in you. And we have to do that by explaining to people what you do, why it matters. Again, think about who is it that you're serving, what kind of work is it that you do that benefits some member of society who's not a member of the union? Does it benefit some community? Does it benefit some family? Does it benefit some system that's important to our society? Figure out how to communicate that and look for allies in that. When we took office at the Chicago Teachers Union, we immediately opened the union doors to the community. We invited a list of about 25 from north, south, east, and west, black, white, and brown community associations, resident groups, to come into the union office and sit down with us at the big table we call the community board, where the community members, representatives of the Puerto Rican community here, the black nationalist community over here, the Asian community over here, whatever, come to the table with us and put on the table what are the issues that concern you in your community. We care about your community because the kids we teach are in your community. The health of your community has something to do with the health of the children coming to our schools. At the same time, we put on the table what our issues are as a union, as professionals working with children in the schools, as educators, and we spend time working in coalition. Many times there are things we can do together, things that the community members want us to support in their neighborhood. We want them to support something we're doing. There's sometimes we can't support them or we don't. But we ended up doing, after nearly 3 years of this, was building a strong consensus across Chicago that the Chicago Teachers Union really does seem to care and our chief advocates for children. So much so that when we got to the point where we needed to go on strike last year, because our wacky mayor wanted us to work an hour and a half longer each day without getting paid. He wanted to add more weeks to the school year without getting paid. We said we're not having anything of that. Ain't nobody got time for that. So we had to go on strike. But most of what we do in talking with our allies and the public is that we don't talk about our salary and benefits. We don't talk about the working condition improvements that we want. We talk about things in terms of what's going to improve the lot in life for this child in the classroom. So we will talk about how can we reduce class size so that there's fewer children in the classroom, which affords more time for the teacher to work with each child. How can we make sure that these schools that have been historically denied financial resources by the school system because of racial and other bigoted prejudices, how can we increase equity and equality in spending in these neighborhoods? We talk about these issues were reflected in what we were actually bargaining at the contract bargaining, at the negotiations table, but we didn't talk about salary increases. So when we talk about reducing class size, that's good for kids. What that also means is it's good for teachers because you got to hire more teachers to reduce class size.
Right.
When we talk about increasing equity in spending and funding, we're talking about in the school system, schools especially that have been ignored, what we end up doing is increasing resources for those teachers and those faculty people that work with the kids. We talk about reducing paperwork. The amount of paperwork that faculty and teachers had to work on in the classroom prevented them from spending more time with the kids. They had hundreds of hours of paperwork involved every year. Useless, pointless, went nowhere, proved nothing. It wasn't documented, wasn't recorded. Paperwork reduction was a contract demand. We'll explain that in terms of how much more time can teachers have with your child if we reduce paperwork, if we mandate that there's a limit on paperwork. So every time we talk about a contract demand, try and figure out how does it relate to the people you serve? How does it relate to potential allies that may support your movement, your union contract issue? There's many things I could tell you about Chicago and reaching out for allies, and I think it's particularly interesting to see, most of the people here are union people, but there really needs to be meetings like this populated with large numbers of average folks, citizens who are not part of unions, citizens who may see themselves only as taxpayers, divorced from what the unions are doing or divorced from that government body. What we like to remind our members do, we encourage them to spend time thinking about this. You are the leader in your neighborhood, in Greenwood and Albany Park. You are the union. You are the leader in your neighborhood. Start with, how many members in your family? They might have been invited to come with you here tonight. What neighbor across the street that likes you, that maybe you cook together, or you commute together, or you go to work together, or something, or you see each other in the grocery store shopping. Maybe there's someone at church that really relies on you and vice versa. You need to spend time reaching out for allies to join you in something that's just as important to you. And you celebrate and honor them for doing that. We must really focus on, when we do it, the Chicago Teachers Union, what have we done to bring more people to the table in decision making about policy or in some public protest about some issue? What have we done to bring more people to participate from the public? You know why we do that? We do that because it's strength in numbers, number one. Number two, we know that the 1%, those guys out there, the corporate greedy chieftains who are figuring out they want more. That's their bottom line. They want more. No, they don't want more. They want it all. And our job is to do our best to educate allies and the public to understand that. Karen Lewis and our leadership, and myself too sometimes, are known as being brash and loud and noisy and bossy, and it sounds, the media wants to say we're arrogant and pushy, but you know what? We have to spend time speaking loudly to speak truth to power, because the 1% owns all the media. They own all the television and the radio and the newspapers. Their vehicles of mass miseducation are well known. So we have to be very, very vigorous in our use of alternative communication strategies and people power. Again, the social organizing unionism model we have depends on us investing time, not in flyers and
Whoops.
lights went
Someone leaving us here.
light
Someone
switch.
leaving again.
Not in flyers and email communication so much as the personal touch, the face-to-face, the eyeball meeting, in actually talking to the delegates. We have, each of the 600 schools has one delegate leader that's elected by that faculty. We spend time training the delegates on how to be more effective at human relations. That is, working with each other and their own members. You know, there's a percentage of members that don't care about what's going on. They just want the union to take care of it. You know, get out there, fight for a good contract, make sure the paycheck goes through, represent me when I have a grievance. That's about all. But to make that stronger and to make it more effective for us as a collective, we have to talk with each other more about it. And we spend a lot of time doing it. We spend a lot of time working hard at this. We spend a lot of time celebrating members. We spend a lot of time, I said earlier in meetings, we party a lot. We work hard and party hard. Because, again, the 1%, the bosses, they're the ones who spend more time demeaning you, telling you you're worthless, not giving you the respect you deserve, treating you like crap, threatening you, maintaining and managing a culture of fear in the school workplace where our faculty members are. We get a lot of that negativity, but we have to spend ourselves, at least start with ourselves, celebrating ourselves, because no one else is going to do it but us first. Once we start recognizing and honoring ourselves, we do encourage other people to come with us and come along. And that's why I say speak to your family members and speak to your neighbors and speak to people. By the way, when I mentioned church earlier, we have this thing in Chicago called Teacher in a Pulpit. A majority of our members belong to some mosque or synagogue or church or temple. And during the spring and in the fall, the members ask the minister for 20 minutes on a Sunday to talk about what they do for a living. Just as simple as that. Teacher in a Pulpit. Of course, we do training for teachers that volunteer to do it. Several hundred do it. We do a training. We have the bullet points on things they should include in their remarks, but we encourage you to speak from the heart. Speak about what matters to you most. And then you get up there on a Sunday and you speak to the rest of the congregation. They get to learn something more about you. Those that are interested in it will be closer to you and closer to your side when push comes to shove or the times get hard. So the Teacher in the Pulpit is a real important program, but would you call it union education? No, it's the teacher coming in a pulpit. It's real easy and simple. It's insidious. The 1% don't like it at all. They don't like our Truth Squad. One of the things I did is in overseeing the communications department and realizing so many of our members spend a lot of time blogging and posting on Facebook, and a bunch of them involved in sending tweets around, and people are, you listen to radio, there's several radio stations that are very busy and popular in Chicago, and you start to recognize, wait a minute, that's Miss Jones from Abraham Lincoln School. Again, she was talking about this. We call all of these people together for one meeting one day. All of these people who are interested in the media, who are writing letters all the time and always posting on the internet and busy with sharing and pushing emails. We got them all together in one big room. We said, you guys are going to be the Truth Squad. Our union communications department, we're paid professionals, spend time paying attention to the issues, knowing what's happening moment to moment. We're going to make the list, the bullet points of what the issues are, what possible reactions to them are, and we feed this stuff to several dozen people who then feed it out to their networks. They write the letters, they call up the TV stations and complain about what they saw. They call up the radio stations, they will post things on Facebook, and they will post things on their different listservs. They're pushing and promoting the union message because, again, we've got to be about the business of finding and seeking allies and communicating with the public. If we spend lots of time talking to ourselves and we're the ones showing up at our marches, we're going to burn ourselves out. Well, frankly, I'm burned out already, but so much of it is fun. I keep playing at it, and a lot of us do too. But we have to think about, not only is what the next generation, but what's the generation right here, right now that can help us out. In Chicago, one of the Chicago things we're doing in Chicago is getting involved in politics in a more serious fashion now. Traditionally, the Chicago Teachers Union, like a lot of the more conservative unions in the city, the unions, especially the Democratic Party-leaning unions, are known for dumping huge amounts of cash on elected officials in hopes and prayer that they're going to somehow support some legislation that's going to benefit the union. They're going to somehow do something that helps our side. And it turns out in America, by and large, the Democrats are only this much better than the Republicans. They're two sides of the same awful coin. It's really the party of money when we talk about the Democrats and Republicans in America. But we decided last year we're not going to dump any of our big union bucks on the politicians this time. No, instead, Karen Lewis, at a big public demonstration, I think Labor Day, last fall, we said we're going to register 100,000 people to vote in Chicago. We're going to spend time looking for, identifying, nurturing the development of candidates for city council and the state legislature. And yes, Mayor Rahm Emanuel, we want to retire you also. Well, of course, the machine in Chicago is furious at us. A lot of other unions, the conservative ones, are very intimidated by us, afraid of us, because we're upsetting the apple cart, the way things usually go. But you know what? The apple cart hasn't been producing that much. In fact, the apple cart is being knocked over by the 1% that is raiding all of the apples. They've decided, the corporate elite in America, from Microsoft to the Walton Family Foundation and the Walmart, and many, many others, dozens of them, have finally realized that the multi-billion-dollar public education budget in America is something that they want. Yeah. They've been able to go after Defense Department contracts, Transportation Department contracts. Hell, they're even now privatizing and running prisons, all under the corporate sphere. What about that education budget? Was that big, fat, shiny apple? So they've been going after it now for almost a decade. And every year, their attempts to bite off bigger pieces, demand more of it, is growing. Someone asked me earlier about standardized testing and what our position is in Chicago about it. First off, the major standardized testing is, what's created is these cookie cutter tests are written by some researcher, university affiliated or not, and some scientists come up with cookie cutter tests that children are to be tested on. They have nothing to do, no relevance to curriculum that's being taught in your local school community. And every local school community is different. Different things are priority for what they want education to be leading with. But these standardized tests have no relation to that. And there are dozens of them. There are about 32 in Chicago that we've opposed the use of standardized testing, because the tests basically are written by somebody. They get paid to write them. They get paid by the school board. They get paid city public tax dollars to write the tests. They get paid to deliver and administer the tests. They get paid yet again to mark the tests. They get paid yet again to report on the results of the tests they created. It's a multi-jillion-dollar boondoggle that is another way corporate America, and again, the information science computer industry is lock, stock, and barrel because they get to demand that you buy the computers and the software, and I want to say iPad, but the tablets the kids have to use to take the tests. And of course, the school system and the legislators have no idea why these tests are important, but the business people said it's important. So we've got kindergartners, age 4, who've never used an iPad, having to fill in the circle and check off the right answers. They've never used an iPad, but the test is being administered on an iPad for 4-year-olds in kindergarten. We're fighting it tooth and nail, and we spend time objectifying and making fun of those people that are trying to rape our citizens financially. Also, these tests are being used as a measure against teachers. If the faculty is going to be evaluated fairly, they should be evaluated based on what they're teaching, their style, the efficacy of what makes sense. There's a lot of ways to look at that, but these tests have nothing to do with what's going on in the classroom. Yet they write legislation that will tie your teacher tenure and tie your evaluation and tie whether or not you get fired. They will tie these tests to whether schools get closed. Again, arbitrary, have nothing to do with what children are actually learning in the classroom. It's just that Microsoft and Pearson and the Walton Foundation told them it was important. Why do these politicians listen to Microsoft and the Walton Foundation? Because they get money. They get donations. We got to educate your allies about why these politicians are doing what they're doing. Not all of them think of all this stuff on their own, this wacky right-wing stuff. They're told what to do. They're tools of the system. I don't know, I could talk about 40 other things too, but I think I want to stop and just open it up, because we do have a lot of good people here. Maybe we should take some questions.
We will.
And I don't really need this microphone. Can everybody hear me? Yeah, we always say use your teacher voice when you're in a classroom talking to people. It's really easy to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.